Hey, happy hump day, everybody. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your girl, Constance Carter, and we are the Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your what? Your shmoney. So today we are diving into a topic that's a personal, controversial, and I think a thought-provoking conversation. It's about legacy. Let's talk about Mike Tyson, how he made waves recently when he told a 14-year-old Jazlyn Guerra, legacy doesn't matter. Is he on to something? Or is legacy still important in shaping our lives and the lives of our others? We gonna break it down with this amazing, wonderful, genius panel of thought leaders from all over the country. First, we have Dr. Felice Hightower, the b.big.coach.com. Yes, baby. Go ahead and give us the Miss America wave. I love it, girlfriend. And then we have Dr. Joe, who is a licensed therapy. And then we're going to go on down to Miss Vanessa Gopal. She has a master's, not a certificate, not a AA, not a bachelor, but yes, a master's in public policy. And she's an entrepreneur. Now she's an entrepreneur, and she's also an international travel advisor. Y'all, okay, let's first talk about it. So I did not get to watch the fight live. I saw some recaps of this fight. And all I saw, I think I was out, but I kept seeing people was having issues with Netflix. People was like, Netflix, you got one job. Everybody's Netflix was paused. And I was like, why is everybody on Netflix? I ain't even know, to be honest with you. And then I saw the outcome and I was like, no way did Mike Tyson lose to this. I think this guy is an internet guy, right? And he's fought other people. Didn't he get beat up by like Mayweather or somebody? I don't know. He got beat up by somebody real good. This Jake Paul guy. So I was a little shocked. Like, I don't think anybody saw this coming. What do you think, Dr. Fleece? Did you see this coming? This great loss of this great champion? You're muted, baby.
No, and I'm really saddened by it, right? Just for the fact that he felt he had to do this at this stage in his life. He should be chilling, relaxing, creating businesses, living his best life, not having to go back into the ring at this age. But I mean, he looked good. He looked like he was fit. I believe that he was able to beat this young man, even though he was younger. I mean, I wasn't delusional about it, but I was very disappointed. And it makes me saddened to think that he did lose. Mm-hmm. And that he had to go out like that in this chapter of his life. I think he should have went out like on a high instead of low. So it's disappointing.
Vanessa, do you think 58 was too old for him to be out there acting like he was 28?
I thought it was commendable of Mike, actually. I think when I watched the videos of him training, getting in shape, I mean, and I think about, me trying to get in shape, how hard that journey is, right? It's hard to show up to the gym and just walk on a treadmill, let alone be at that age and get back in the gym. I think that, if he was doing it for the love of boxing, I can understand that. It's hard to let go of something you've done your whole life, you've been great at. But I also feel like it's sad, to Dr. Felice's point, if you had to do it for money. So, I mean, but I think it's commendable that he can actually get prepared, get in the gym and get in shape like that. That's a different level of competitiveness. It's a different level of dedication. And, I also think that who he fought, I mean, he's pretty good. But if we took that same Mike Tyson and we were able to rewind the clock back and you put him in the ring, I think he would have knocked his ass out.
I don't think. I mean, we know that. Yeah. But do you think, Joe, that he was, that he was not in shape? What are your thoughts about what you've seen out there? Did you see the fight live?
I did. I watched it. And I agree with Vanessa, man. I watched him, like, what he snapped his body into in 6 weeks' time. And that's all I thought about. Like, I tried to get up and go hoop the next day. And, I caught two Charlie horses walking in the door. I was like, man, I was inspired by Mike, but I'm not Mike, So he snapped his body into the discipline required for any person, any human, to snap his body into what he snapped it into. But at 58, bro, that is legendary by itself.
Can I mention something else though, Constance, too?
Mhm.
When he came out before, he was somebody from the hood, from Brooklyn, who had been in reform school and all that different stuff. So his desire was different. He's lived a different lifestyle now. You know what I mean? Like, he's lived rich.
Are you saying Mike is soft?
Not that he's soft, but the fight is different. The spirit and the fire is different. And so it might have been I don't know, but it might have been a desperation. But that fire that he had when he first came out, as our original, the Mike that we know, he's not that Mike anymore. And
well,
so
there's age too, right? There's also age.
Too, but he brought all of that with him into the ring. And that's possibly could have had some type of effect on why he showed up the way that he did.
Yeah.
But doesn't that make what he did more impressive though? Because he doesn't have that same desire or.
No, it does.
Right.
It does, but there's something about the struggle, right?
For sure.
It's something about that struggle that has caused us all to be where we are. And then we got to find ways to keep tacking on a why as to why we keep going. And so I think it's commendable at 58. I don't know if it's reasonable in 6 weeks, even though he did it in 6 weeks, if that was reasonable and enough time for him to really get in the shape he needed to. And I see somebody said that 20 million is a great inspiration. It is, but
I'll get knocked out by Mike Tyson for $20 million. No,
Man.
but when you think, oh, you were gonna say something, Joe?
I was just gonna say if you saw it live, right? In Jerry's house, right, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, the ovation that he got going in there. I looked at that and I said, well, with this much love for him as a character, as a person, there's 100 different ways Mike Tyson can make money. So I don't know for certain, but when I see that, I'm like, I don't know if money was the motivator. I just don't know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk, right? So there's a lot of talk about why he did it. There's also talk even here on the internet and here in our comments about it being rigged. When you look at the footage from the week before and you look at the footage from the day of the fight, he looks like a very different person. What are your personal thoughts, Vanessa, on was this rigged?
I mean, I've been seeing stuff on the internet too. I feel like it definitely could have been rigged. Maybe there were stipulations in place. Who he was fighting was, I can't imagine that they would allow Mike to throw one of them old school, 44 knockout blows. I think it might be an insurance issue, but I can definitely see it being rigged. But I think overall it was a stretch for a 58-year-old man to be fighting a super successful, 27 or 28-year-old man in general. But yeah, I certainly can agree with some of the comments on it being rigged looking at the video.
Maybe if there was stipulations, because I do see in the comments that people are saying there were stipulations on him not being able to knock him out. Maybe Mike don't know how to fight without knocking somebody out. Maybe that's it. Maybe he just doesn't have the art of being able to really hold himself. So if I can't really do what I want to do, I can't really do how I want to do it. Maybe. Dr. Felice, do you think that this was rigged? What is your personal opinion on this?
I think it's possible for entertainment purposes. I think it puts Netflix on the map. I think he helped Netflix. And also I'm thinking that the guy that he was fighting possibly has some stipulations about what that needed to look like in order for him to agree to be a part of this big entertainment thing on Friday. And so it's very possible that, they had some things in place to ensure that everybody showed up.
Do you think, Dr. Joe, that Mike Tyson would be willing, just as just your opinion, to sell his soul to rig something like this, to sell his legacy? And we're gonna talk about that next. Like, it's him doing that feels like he's selling his legacy if this was rigged. But do you think this is rigged? And do you think Mike Tyson would throw a fight?
I think it was, I don't know about rigged, but I think there was a little bit of scripted to it, or like stipulations that didn't allow Mike to be Mike. That's what I believe. But I don't think Mike Tyson cares about the same things that we care about. Like, he's seen different things in his life. And like, for us to try to look through his eyes and through his perspective and try to make decisions based on what Mike has seen, I think is nearly impossible. So I just don't think he cares about the things that we care about.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, because if you ever listen to his podcast, Mike is very introspective. Mike is very
Indeed.
reflective and self-aware. So it feels like he will be a person that is more thoughtful about the things that he thinks about when it comes to who he is as a person, and what type of legacy, if he really understood what legacy was. But, this might be a precursor, him saying legacy is a made up word, because now he needed to distance himself from it, because him throwing this fight may have been, that he doesn't want to associate that with his legacy, when really that's what it really is. I want to talk more about it after we come back from a commercial, because I really want to get into the idea of, did he really ruin his legacy? Is there a legacy? Do you guys think in our comment section, does Mike have a legacy? What is his legacy? What do you see his legacy as being? And going forward, does this fight tarnish his legacy? Let's go to a commercial.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am Tierra Williams. I'm also known as Miss Black Hollywood, and I am the proud producer of this show. So I hope that every day when you join us, you leave a little smarter than you came, because that's the point. Otherwise, why are you watching? So if you want to receive notices for when we go live, Fly Nubian Money goes live every single day. That's Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't know, now you know. All you have to do is text the word Queens. That's Queens. That's Queens to 87948. That's 87948. That's Queens to 87948. Yes? If you want.
All right, y'all. So let's look at this. Let's really take a deep dive and look at what legacy is, what it means. I think we all strive for, to leave something to our children, because this man has 7 children, 6 or 7 children, right? He had one that passed away. And so when you do things, the last fight that he had, and I want to show that video really quick. Look, so he has all those beautiful children, and he loves his children wholeheartedly. And I want to look at that video first, Gwen, if you don't mind. The video that it wasn't this fight, but it was a fight that I think it was a fight that he did before he retired, where he talked about him not wanting to disrespect the game, because there, to me, it seemed like he kind of had some thought about his legacy. So let's take a look at it.
First, let's start with you. Did you want to continue?
Well, I would like to continue, but I saw that I was getting beat on. I realized I don't think I have it anymore, because I got the ability to stay in shape, but I don't got the fighting guts, I don't think, anymore.
When did you recognize that? At what part of the fight?
I don't know. Early into the fight. I'm just sorry I let everybody down. I just don't have this in my heart anymore.
Did you feel as though you had it coming into the fight?
No, I'm just fighting to take care of my bills, basically. I don't have the stomach for this kind of no more. I'm more conscious of my children and those guys looking at my parents. I don't have that ferocity. I'm not an animal anymore.
Does that mean we won't see you fight again?
Yeah, that's most likely. I'm not going to fight again. I'm not going to disrespect the sport anymore by losing to this caliber of fighters.
Okay, so you look at that. Now, this was not this fight with Jake Paul. This was his last fight that he did before he retired. And he basically, in so many words, said he didn't want to tarnish his legacy. He didn't want to shit on this great game that had made him. And so, or this great sport that had made him. So, and here it seems like we're talking legacy. It seems like he's a man who was contrite, and he knew that he just couldn't go forward and continue boxing in the manner that he had in the past. Dr. Felice, just from an emotional and social and personal perspective, what did he look like to you in that moment on that video?
He looked defeated. He looked discouraged. He looked like I do like his transparency. Like, he was very transparent and honest and vulnerable. He looked very vulnerable there. And you could empathize with him because he understood and he understands who he is and what he comes across as one of the greatest fighters that we've ever experienced. And for him to have that experience, it was possibly very humbling for him. And so I got emotional watching it, and my heart went out to him. And I'm so grateful that the video wasn't for this fight, because I didn't know where that was from. and so I could see where it was from then. But yeah, you could see that he was disappointed in himself because he knew what his image represents to all of us and to himself.
Yeah.
And so those are the words that come to mind for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Vanessa, in terms of that video? What do you feel that he felt and he was going through, and how does that reflective of even him today?
Well, I think Mike Tyson, I mean, when you think about the legacy of Mike Tyson, whether or not he wants to associate his legacy, that he has a legacy, I think when you're undeniably great at something, you just, you you carry on that legacy. Like it doesn't matter whether you want to embrace it or not. So I think in that moment, after being so great and winning so many fights, having so many knockouts, I mean, this man had 44 knockouts. That's literally unheard of,
Yeah.
right? It's still to this day, that's unheard of. So I think in that moment when you lose and, you know, he's having a moment of saying like, this isn't going the way that these other fights have went. And so I loved his vulnerability. I loved his honesty. I feel like we don't get that in this new age. We don't get the honesty from legends, right? We don't get that. So and the vulnerability, I honestly don't know too many athletes that just come out and say, you know what, it's my time. I lost. I respect the game. So I mean, I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a moment of truth and transparency, and I kind of admire Tyson for that. That he does have the ability to be honest and vulnerable in the sport and still be extremely great. Like,
That part.
yeah, I mean, nobody's going to question whether this man, off this one fight, he doesn't have a legacy if you know anything about boxing.
Right.
Period.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. What about you, Joe? What do you think about that video?
Well, one, I think y'all need to stop putting me after Vanessa because it looked like I don't have my own thoughts because she just be saying what I want to say. But
Don't blame her because you don't have your own thoughts.
Yep. I'm copying Vanessa. Listen, I think that when you go out and you try something 50 times and you succeed at it, you know, most of the time and only failing like maybe 5 or 6 times. And when you do succeed, you succeed in great fashion. A moment like that, you're kind of like, well, am I great as I was? Especially when you think about somebody whose identity is wrapped up in this thing. You know, without this thing, we not only do we not know Mike Tyson, he might not be alive. You know what I mean? So his entire identity is wrapped up in this thing. So yeah, there's a moment where he was vulnerable, where he thought about, you know, if I'm not good at this, maybe I'm nothing.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that in that moment. But as far as legacy, man, like his legacy is super intact. You know, this is an historical figure, and there's a generation of people like myself who, you know, if you ask me, if my children come ask me about Mike Tyson, they won't hear negativity. They won't hear me putting him down. They'll hear me talk about the journey, you know, and how this man overcame like literally nothing, coming from nothing and built something, lost it, built it again, and people still love him.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. And, you know, that speaks to a lot of people who are in those positions, right? People who perform at a high level and they are so used to winning and they're so used to the cheers and they're so used to all of these things, even though he's had hardships. He's been in prison. He's had his money stolen. He's had some business losses. He's had those lows as well. But every time he steps out on that ring, and so for a lot of performers, every time they step out on that stage or every time they step out on that field, it's all cheers. And then when the lights go out to that, then where does that put them? And so that goes to, you know, the next video that I want to show about him saying, I don't got no legacy, which we all know that. So let's take a look at that video. And I want to get the audience's opinion on this too, because I thought it was kind of weird for somebody who's so known, who has a huge legacy. You got children, but then you say something like this. So let's take a look.
Well, in your return to the ring for this fight, you are setting a monumental opportunity for kids my age to see the legend, Mike Tyson, in the ring for the first time. So after such a successful career, what type of legacy would you like to leave behind when it's all said and done?
Well, I don't know. I don't believe in the word legacy. I just think that's another word for ego. Legacy doesn't mean nothing. That's just some word everybody grabbed onto. Someone said that word and everyone grabbed on the word, so now it's used every 5 seconds. It means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just passing through. I'm going to die, and it's going to be over. Who cares about legacy after that? What a big ego. So I'm going to die. I want people to think that I'm this, I'm great. No, we're nothing. We're just dead. We're dust. We're absolutely nothing. Our legacy is nothing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That is something that I have not heard before. Someone say that as an answer.
Can you really imagine somebody say, I want my legacy to be this way when you're dead?
So let's talk about it, Joe. What did you think when you, huh?
Man, that was wild. But like I said, we know Mike is going to be, honest in the moment. I mean, his feelings are very kind of fluid. So, from 1 minute, you might ask Mike something one day and it'd be one thing. You might ask him the next day, it'd be another thing, because he's a human being. He's not like a rehearsed celebrity. So that is not surprising to me. He's in this weird space where, like, he loves the admiration, but he's also uncomfortable with it at times. Uncomfortable with being known for what he is, because then there's a certain standard that he has to uphold, and he's like, don't hold me to that, but also love me. So I mean, that's what I observe when I listen to Mike talk in different settings. So I just think that was just him trying to deflect a little bit, but he I don't believe he truly believes that to the T.
Dr. Felice, so he had this interview prior to his fight, and if you are of the mind that he threw the fight, then perhaps his whole idea of this being his legacy, he wanted to distance himself from it. Do you think that could be the case, or do you think this man really meant that, or maybe he's just not bright enough to really understand what a legacy is? Oh, you're muted.
I did unmute myself. I don't know how I got back on. But I think it could be a combination of all three, but I'm sensing some humility too in it, even though we don't necessarily agree with it. I'm sensing some humility and maybe not getting the full range of what legacy really means. And that the humility part about, because with legacy, it means the impact that you left on the world, right? And how that continues to resonate even after you're gone. So he's saying, when he's gone, so it's like the impact ends. And so I don't think he really understood the full scope of it and the depth of what legacy really means, So I'm not saying he doesn't necessarily understand, but I don't think in that moment he was able to go there. And
that very well might be it.
And, sometimes you get put on the spot and, people want you to give this profound answer. And I think in that moment, he really answered from where he was. And it could have been the possibility of, if the fight was rigged, we don't know. But if it was, that could have been on his mind too. And that's why he answered the way that he did. But I just think that he did the best he could in that moment with that question. And I don't think he understood the full range of what legacy really meant and what she was looking for from him in that answer.
And that's the thing about, being in media and then having these sound bites, because then we have whole think pieces based upon one particular sound bite, when it might be just a person in a particular moment that may not be, the true representation of who they are or what they meant. I don't know. But what do you think, Vanessa?
Well, I love Jazzy. Let me just say that she is 14. She dealt with that answer.
Did she? She handled that like a pro.
She did. And so, because it was, he got deep for a minute, but I think a little bit of both, Dr. Felice and Dr. Joe, what they were both saying is relevant. I think a part of it is just in the moment. He's just like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, you die and it is what it is. And I think a part of him being so great is that maybe he doesn't even understand the impact that his own story has. So, undeniably great. And then with all the ebbs and the flows and the trials that have came his way, and he's managed to defeat it. So sometimes when you go through stuff, you don't even realize your own impact of like how significant your story is and how that relates to other people going through it, and how they may use pieces of your story to get them through whatever they need to get through. So I feel like a part of it is maybe him being humble, also not really understanding the full scope of what legacy is, but also maybe he doesn't understand the significance of his life and the journey, because he's in it. And sometimes when you're just great at something, you don't even think about it. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
But that's not his story is not a normal story. It's not an everyday
Right.
story that people get up and have this type of journey. So I think there's a combination of both, and then maybe age too.
Yeah.
I think as you age, you just kind of become more humble, and other things become less important. So
Hmm.
the ego, drops a little bit, and you just become more in this state of humility.
But I
So
think that goes to if you don't have a true understanding of what legacy is, because whether you are humble or not, what everything that you've done in this life, whether you are as big as Mike Tyson or as little as us here, not saying that we're small people, but we're leaving a legacy in some way. We're leaving a footprint in some way. So everyone has some sort of legacy, whether it's some that's admired by millions of people or some that's been admired by your close family and friends. There is a legacy that I think that we all have. And then, somebody who's that handsome ass Richard Knox said maybe he's not proud of everything that happened. I don't know. But we'll talk about it more after we come back from a break.
You want to grow your money and not blow your money, as Constance says, check us out at flynubianmoney.com. There's all kinds of resources, programs, videos, resources. In 2024, there's no reason to be broke when there's information all around us. So get your money right. flynubianmoney.com.
So I want to talk more about legacy, though, because that's what we're talking about here. And what is the definition of legacy and what does it mean to you? Because what I really want us to take from this conversation is that everyone here leaves some type of legacy, some type of impact. It's up to you what that legacy and impact is going to be. So I want to start with you, Joe. What does legacy mean to you, and what legacy are you leaving for your family or your community?
So I think legacy has to do with, how many generations, will speak your name after you're gone. You know, how many can say that they were directly impacted by your actions. I think that's what legacy is. Even if it's, just, only if my son speaks of my name, I'm good with that. But did I leave an impression on him that he can now pass on to his children and so on and so forth? To me, that's legacy, man. I really only think about who's going to stand over me when I'm gone and say, yeah, he did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what I think legacy is.
Yeah. What about you, Dr. Felice?
So when I think about legacy, it's about, did I follow the purpose, plan, and call on my life that would make a difference for the people I'm called to serve? And then am I living my life in a way that will make my daughter and my grandbaby and her children say, that's what I want to look like and show up in the world? That's what matters to me, that my children know all things that are possible in and through me and my modeling. And so, and that I leave them better off, right? For it. And that I leave something behind so that they can pick up the baton and run with it. And that's what matters to me. And then while I'm doing that, then hopefully the lives that I've impacted, that says something too. But really, my legacy really matters to me when it comes to family. And so how did I live my life? Not just talk the talk, but did I walk it too? And so that's how I want to leave a legacy.
I love that. What about you, Vanessa?
legacy to me is, how many people did I bring along and change their lives? Like, how many people did I touch? And then what am I pouring into my daughter where I can get her to get that, to do that same thing, to bring people along with her in her journey for entrepreneurship, in her journey for economic success. And so when I think about my father, and his journey, he did that with me. Like, I feel like he's leaving behind something that was way greater than what he could imagine. And so I think about pouring that into my daughter, as well as doing things like what we're doing here on the podcast, or reaching out to other people, sharing resources. I want my impact to be, she was helpful. She tried to change the trajectory of people's lives economically, mentally, and sometimes physically, like, even, so I think that's what I want my impact to be. I want my daughter to have that same type of purpose in life. I
Yeah.
want her to have the purpose of serving and bringing people along with her and not being selfish about having people come up with you and grow with you. So
Yeah.
that's what I think legacy is about.
Yeah. I mean, legacy is all of those things that you guys shared. And I love each and every one of your definitions because they encompass all of those things. And what I really want people to know is legacy is just not for famous people. It's not just for people who are doing certain things. You can leave a good legacy or a bad legacy. You can leave a generational blessing or a generational curse. The choice is yours. You know, for me, my children are my why. So I get up every day because of them four jokers. And then for me, my legacy is what happens with them next, the choices that they make, the decisions that they make, and then the lives that they impact. Because I don't want just them living off of their mama or off of their mama's name or what their mama's done or even their mama's money. I want them to also do something important in this world, whether it's impacting 1 or 1 million. I want them to leave a legacy as well. So that's the true legacy. It's not about ego, it's about impact. You know, it's about how many people can you help? How many people can you serve? How many people's lives are transformed because you have come across their lives in some way? That's what legacy is about for me. A positive legacy is really about impact. But let me ask you this, because I know everybody talked about their family. How many kids you got, Joe?
2.
How many you got, Felice? You have 1?
1.
And then Vanessa, you have 1?
1.
Okay. So for you, like in terms of your children, what do y'all want to see happen for your children with their legacies? Now that you've created yours, you know what yours is, but what about your children's legacy? And I know we can't dream our children's, futures for them, but what do you want them to do with the legacy that you leave? I'll start with you, Felice.
So right now, I'm so blessed to see, and I have to say it, my daughter's a badass. I mean, she's on her second master's right now.
Love it.
And she's such a good mother to my grandbaby who I am preparing now. So I bring my grandbaby into this office and I start teaching her the ropes, and I've already told her.
How old is she?
She's 4. I already told her, you taking the baton? And she says, yes, Noni. And so I'm already seeing the benefits of my modeling. And like you, that's my why, because they have to see it. They have to see what they can become through you. And I don't want them to be me. I want them to be better than me. And so my grandbaby is a genius. So I already know that my legacy is in good hands, right? And so I'm prepping them now, and I want it to keep going. And everything that I think of and everything that I do is to make sure that they are good. And I'm teaching them responsibility, right? And so I'm not just handing this to them. I'm teaching you how to be a steward over this too, so that you can keep this going and it don't die with you, because I didn't teach you how to handle it and be a good steward over it. Yeah. So that your legacy too is to also pass this down. And I love my people. And so I want to make sure that we are a part of my people generating wealth and keeping it and making sure that we all rise up together. So I love what Vanessa said, is how many people can we bring with us? And so I want them to also know that it's just not enough that we good. It's not enough that we are good. It is only great when we are bringing people with us and going back and bringing people along with us. And that's what makes it impactful.
Yeah. Amen. That's real legacy. What about you, Vanessa?
My daughter's 6. And so what we've done ever since she's been little is we've just poured into her. We read to her every night. She's reading at three levels above her grade level. And we make her do history book reports. And the importance of this is that I want her to understand who she is and where she comes from and how great that she is. And, we've written a book. She's written a book, and she's writing her second book. So we want to teach her entrepreneurship very early on. And so in addition to her knowing who she is, that and knowing her people, I want her to have business opportunities so that she can bring them along and understand money at a very early age, value education, and share those stories even at a young age. My daughter will tell you about Mansa Musa. She'll tell you about, the pharaohs in Egypt. I just think that knowing very early on, knowing who you are as a child creates a different type of confidence. And so I hear her sharing that with her cousins. And then we also do reading with her cousins, like we'll do Zoom readings. So that's a part of me. I'll have them read books to each other. That's a part of my journey to teach her is we bring people along with us because maybe, her mom works a lot. She don't have time to read to her every night, but we're going to bring her along with her on this journey so that she can be at a 3rd, 4th grade reading level. So very early on, we're teaching her to pour into other people, how to run a business, and just be confident in who she is, and then also share that with other people. So I'm hoping and I believe that she will do great things, and I want her to bring other people along with her. So we preach that a lot about making sure that you are reaching out and sharing things and
How
reading
old
to
is your daughter?
people. She's 6.
Okay. I
So
love that.
we got a ways to go, but we're just pouring. So
Yeah.
Dr. Felice, I want her to be a monster when she gets older. And I
Yeah.
want
I
her to
love
bring
that.
people. I want her to
Yeah.
bring people with her.
I love that. Each one teach one. That's what it's about. What about you, Joe?
So, I lost my parents very early, like 15. By the time I was 16, both my parents were gone. So what does that do to me? That puts me in a mode of survival. So in a mode of survival, me just trying to fit in spaces and be loved and be accepted, I had to pretend to be something I was not at times. That's lying. That's, being unauthentic. That's just a lot of shame, and because of that, at times, I could have been hurtful to other people. I could have done things that I'm not proud of. But what was I really? I was really just trying to survive. But what I want for my children is for them to live a life where they can be who they are authentically all the time without having to do that. And when you walk away from them at my baseline, the bottom line that I want for them is if you can't make a situation better, at the very least, do no harm in any of those situations. Do no harm.
Yeah.
And both of my sons exceed that all the time. They
How
are
old are
they are 15 and 22, 23, just turned 23,
Okay.
23. And they are very good people. They're very good men. And that, for me, is what I care about the most. Now, what they do career-wise and what they achieve, that's totally up to them. As long as they are coming into this world authentic, showing empathy for others, not being ashamed of their vulnerability, not having to hide who they are at any point in their lives. And whatever they do after that, whatever they achieve after that, is just icing on the cake for me.
Oof. Don't it make you feel good? You could die today and be happy that you created some great human beings, right? Yeah, I have 4 kids, 16, 18, 20. Those are my boys, and my daughter is 25. And I've always been very intentional about what I do with them because I think it's such an awesome responsibility as parents to mold these little human beings into who they are and to make sure that you are always pouring positivity into them so that they can know that they are great. All of my kids, of course, children go through, self-esteem issues. My daughter had big eyes, so she always got teased about her big eyes. My oldest son, he had big lips, so he always got teased about his big lips. My middle son has a big nose, so he always got teased about his big nose. My youngest son had crooked teeth, so he always got teased about his crooked teeth. But they all go through that, right? So that's part of life. However, they know who they are. At some point they are going to step into, the handsome and beautiful and brilliant people they are because we're always pouring into them. And that's so important. I think one of the things that you said, Joe, about your parents and about how that impacted who you are. And I do want to talk about, where you all came from and how that impacted how you show up today. So we'll talk more about that when we come back from our commercial.
Fly Nubian Money is now on Spotify. Yes. We are on Spotify. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us. All you have to do is search Fly Nubian Money and we will appear. All of our episodes. Make sure that you leave a 5-star rating and reviews so other people that come along and are looking for a good show to watch, they'll follow us too. If you are interested in being on Fly Nubian Money, sorry, I don't have any spaces. I'm just playing. If you are interested in being a queen or a king on Fly Nubian Money for the day, please reach out to me. I'm at info@realvirtual.net. That's info@realvirtual.net. Also, if you need help with your business, go ahead and send me an email for that too. Okay. I've said enough. Now, back to the show.
So we always want to know, what your thoughts are, and we want you to share your ideas and your perspectives and your experiences with us as well. So go ahead and put it in the comments because we want you to talk back to us and talk black to us. But I do want to talk about, what your background and what your upbringing was like and why, and that makes an impact on you. And I'll say this for me, I grew up in a house. We had 19 people in a 3-bedroom home that was a family for 5. It was 19 people, and I was exposed to all kind of stuff: drugs, sex, alcohol, fighting, all kind of inappropriate shit. And I remember, being told, don't be telling nobody what goes on in this house. Don't be putting our business out there when you. And I remember McGruff the crime dog or whoever that was, Smokey the Bear or whatever, when they had the little things at school, and they're like, have you ever seen anybody do drugs? And I really wanted to say something really bad. And I remember I was told, you better not say nothing that's going on in this house. And I couldn't say them, but it's whatever. But I grew up in that household, in that environment, and me and my siblings all came out very differently. The cool thing is I'm the wildest one. So, and my wild is not that wild, right? So my sister and my brother are very laid back. They don't curse. They don't drink. They don't smoke, with everything that they've seen in the house. But one thing I would say, because my parents were very young when they started having kids. My mom was 16 when she had my brother, 19 when she had my sister, and 24 when she had me. So they were still learning. They were still growing up. So they moved to California from Arkansas, and everybody who wanted to move to California, they moved with us. We was the house that everybody went to. So it was a free for all. My parents were working. So my parents were working, swing shift and graveyard, and we were just kind of left to fend for ourselves with all this wild shit going on. But I will say, my parents always, by the time they had me, they kind of figured some things out. With my siblings, because they were younger, they didn't parent them. They didn't reinforce that they were smart, that they were brilliant, how much they loved. They always told us that they loved us, but they didn't. So they was, my brother, they would say he was stupid. So he thought he was stupid. By the time I came along, they were like, oh, she's so smart. Cause I could memorize some phone numbers. Oh, she's so smart. So I thought, because they told me I was smart, I thought that I was smart. And then I remember my aunt, when I was in 2nd grade, my aunt said that you can do or be or have anything that you want to because God loves you the same as he loves everybody else. And I was like, even the president of the United States? She said, even the president of the United States. So I thought I could have anything or do anything because God loved me the same as he loved the president of the United States. And so that for me was my motivation. And that made me think that I could do anything. So the cool thing is, with all that noise that was going on in my environment, I still have my parents that told me that they loved me. They were together until I was at least 14, but they still told me that they loved me. And my aunt was like, God loves you the same, so you could do anything you want. And, I fucked around and believed her. And that was great. And I'm glad that she told me that. But what about you, Vanessa? How did your childhood and your family shape who you are and the legacy that you leave today?
Growing up, it was just real. I would grow up in a very unstable environment. I probably moved like 13 times throughout my life. Just very, very unstable. Both of my mom was really young when she had me. My dad was, kind of running around. They kind of got it together a little later in life. And so I just remember moving a lot. I live with everybody. I'm like the kid that lived with aunties, cousins, best friends. I've lived with everybody. So one of the things that always encouraged me was, I remember early on I would have teachers to say, if you do good in school, you can go anywhere you want to go. And I truly believe that. I believe that would be my outlet. That would be my way to be stable. And so I did really well in school, even through moving and not having a stability. I just knew that this was my ticket out. And I firmly believed that. And I just kind of stuck with that. And, my family really didn't have time they were trying to pay bills and do other stuff. My parents, they hadn't been together since was 2 years old. So just very, very unstable family. But I very loved. I was very loved. I can't say that I wasn't loved. I just was unstable. So I took education to a different level, and I wanted to leave. I'm from Minnesota originally, and I felt like everything around me was kind of chaotic. And so I pretty much got straight A's and bounced up out of Minnesota, and I moved to
Minnesota.
California, Minnesota, and started my life here. So you know, I think there was some beauty in not having everything together because it made me have a different grind. To your point earlier, Dr. Felice, I wanted to get out. I wanted stability. I saw what that looked like with other friends around me. And so I
Yeah.
just wanted my life to be a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I love it. All right, what about you, Dr. Felice?
So I'm not trying to do a plug, but it's horrible. I have a book called Be Big Too. And in my book, I share that I'm a domestic violence baby. So what does that mean? That means that my original birth date was October 22nd. And I made my way to the earth September 28th due to my father beating my mother really, really bad that she went to premature labor. So I grew up witnessing the abuse of my mother. And I grew up in Brooklyn in the projects. And I remember, my father eventually left. So I remember what that was like when he left. My father, years later, like really, really late, I found out that my father suffered with mental illness. And so I grew up watching that, but I also remember at a young age that I said that wouldn't be me. And so I just remember how that shaped me, because when my dad did leave, I became my mother's right-hand man. I was parentified. I had to make sure that my brother and me, we were latchkey kids. I remember coming through the projects real late, at night, being scared, trying to get us home safely. So I remember all of those things, but I also remember a beautiful childhood too, in spite of that trauma. And I have a phenomenal mother who fought her way through all of that. And who literally went back to school to get her education. And because she didn't have the support, she would literally take us all to school with her. And me and my brother would always think, we're going to hate school. Like, I remember late nights of her being in college, and I hated it. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. And now me and my brother is a principal out in California. Like, we all made it out. And so even though I witnessed that trauma, I realized the power of beginnings and how God will use all of your stuff to benefit you. And so that's what I do. I take all of that and I make it into something good so that I can be a blessing to others, what I have learned, what I've come through. And now I know how to minister to people accurately when I am possibly triggered by some of their trauma. I know how to meet them at their need. And so I hope that that's my legacy, that I took all of that and I turned it into something good. And that at the end of the day, I hope that I honor my mama. I'm proud.
I feel that.
And that
you're going to make me cry, Dr. Felice, and I'm a thug.
No, but I do. I hope that I make her proud.
Yeah.
And that I'm the difference, that I broke it. And that I pass that on to my daughters, and that they too have a different experience. So.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Joe, so we've all had very tough beginnings. I don't see anybody here, and it seems to be a lot of our stories is just being Black in America, and so when I hear Dr. Alicia talk about how her childhood was, I was like, that was what I was trying to do with my kids. That was it, but it didn't work. But when it seems like it's more of a commonality than it is, an outlier, right? This type of trauma. And one of the things you said, Dr. Felice, is you said, I had a beautiful childhood inside all that trauma. Oof, that was a word right there. That was a word. What can people do? Because many people have similar stories, and a lot of people weren't able to do the things that we've been able to do. What kind of advice can you give them?
I would say this. I think the best way to go about it, and this has been kind of my journey as well, is first understanding what adverse experiences are, getting an understanding of what those are. Because sometimes, like you said, it's so common that we start thinking these things are normal. Like we're supposed to go through these things, right? And I remember when I first was introduced to it's called ACEs. I know Dr. Felice probably know what I'm talking about. Adverse childhood experiences. You go through them, and there's only a certain number that that you're normally supposed to have. And I was going through them, and I hit like 9 of them, right? And I was like, oh wow, I've experienced all of these things. I've really been living traumatized this whole time, and just trying to survive through it. And so when you get to like the advice or the journey part of what I'm talking about is, once you understand what that is, and you start being vulnerable about it, and start like revealing what these things are and how they show up in your current everyday behavior, and you connect those things, that gives you a lot of power to make changes. It's really all about identifying what is going on right now. What am I showing up as that is bothering me? Why do I always break up in relationships that are good for me? Why am I always screaming and yelling when somebody challenges me? Whatever it is that you don't like about yourself, like trace that back to whatever events began that for you, and then start to tell yourself the truth about what really happened in those moments. And you can learn how to give yourself grace and understanding for the things that you tried to do when you were just trying to survive, or things that you had to do, I should say, not try to do, the things that you had to do when you were just trying to survive, because you believe things about yourself that weren't necessarily true.
That part.
But what choices did you have? Like I said in the beginning, my parents died before I was 16 years old, and I was still in high school with my own apartment. Like I had to put myself on the path. There was nobody in my family that said, this is how you go to college. I had to figure all that out on my own. And because of my surviving, I didn't get a chance to like live on campus, because I still had an apartment that I had to pay rent for. And I had like 3 jobs that I was working just to pay rent as a high school senior.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So the things that I was, but it's crazy, right? But at the time, I just thought that was what you did. Like, I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you do. So when I tell people my story and they be like, wow, I'd be like, okay, so maybe there's something to it. So let me go find out, why some of the things that I do that bother other people and that bother me are occurring. Oh, it's because I believe things about myself that weren't necessarily true.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm explaining this when I'm talking about what to do. Like, please identify your traumas. Just to sum it up, identify your traumas, figure out the things that you believe about yourself that aren't true, and then give yourself the power to believe the truth and change them.
That's good. I want to say Dr. Vanessa. No, Vanessa. What do you think are some things that people can do to overcome these things, the trauma that they've been through?
So I'm gonna just speak for myself. And therapy changed my life. Like understanding what Joe is saying is understanding the traumas that you grow up with and how they show up in your everyday life, and then how you can basically improve on them and work through them has been monumental. I think that we don't even realize like the traumas that we've experienced even during childhood, how they show up in everyday life and relationships and your thought process of whether you can accomplish things. So I think for me, therapy was monumental. Early on, I developed a skill of let me surround myself around people that seemed to be successful. So I noticed very early on the group that I did want to hang with and that I did not want to hang with. And that was my saving grace, because I didn't have people around me. I'm the first generation everything. First generation to leave and go off to college, first generation home, like everything you can, first generation. So I feel like for me, very early on, I recognized, let me find my community. Let me be around the type of people who I hope to be. Even down to the people that was hanging out in school. I'm like, well, let me go hang with the athletes. They seem a little bit more focused. And I think I've kind of developed that skill in life. And I think it's really helped me, because in moments that, those traumas show up and I want to go do something else, I have my circle to keep me accountable. So
Yeah.
that's my advice is one, if you grew up with traumatic experiences, get a therapist. This stereotype of Black people don't need therapy should be out the door.
They got the pastors.
Well, no, you need a therapist. You need a licensed therapist. And I'm a proponent. I believe that every Black person in America should have a therapist just from being in America. Like that's traumatic enough being Black in America. But in addition to that, I think it's important to work through your traumas and also surround yourself with the right tribe because
Yeah.
it really will help.
I love that. And I'm looking in the comments and I love that Terry said my stepdad told me I could do everything, right? But then you have Hassan that said he had a lot of growing up. His mom let the community abuse him. And then mom too said her mother died of domestic violence. When you think about the level of trauma that people go through, either they when she was 15. When you think about that, some people allowed it to paralyze them. Some people have it stunted their growth. Some people were able to stand on top of that and thrive because of it. But there's still so many people, I think more people than not, that have allowed it to paralyze them. Dr. Felice, speak to that.
And so we all have to get to a point where we decide to not let our past change and affect our now and our future. We have to decide that. And so I know that there were times in my life, seriously, where I realized that I wasn't getting where I wanted to in life because of the way the trauma was showing up and how I was exhibiting that in the world. And it really was because I never addressed the trauma. I was walking in a lot of unforgiveness. I was walking in a lot of pain and frustration. It was just a whole lot of stuff that was going on the inside that I really didn't understand. And I'm just going to keep it real too. Yes, I believe everybody needs a therapist, but I can only take you but so far. And so then there's somebody bigger than me that will take you the rest of the way. And I'm going to be honest that it was Christ in my relationship with a higher being that I surrendered myself to and became prostrate with many a night to say, I need some help. And I need a roadmap to how I can get out of this and get and be the person you vision for me to be and show up in this world. And so I had to let go of some things. I had to realize that hurt people, that people show up because they're in survival mode. And I also realized that my journey was for something bigger. And the fact that I came through it, there was something about it. I'm not saying that it was meant to be, but that it was to be a part of my story. And that had I had another trajectory, it probably I wouldn't be here today. And so I honor the full journey, right? And that came through understanding, that came through personal development, that came through introspection, that came from me getting alone by myself and saying, okay, what's going on? Like, and coming up with some truths. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Like, I know that might not have bottled it up, but that was
but I think the different perspectives are so valuable because there's no one size fit all for anybody. So, you take a little bit of each or whatever can apply to you. And I know for me, like, I just wanted better. I just knew. And I've always known, I'm glad that God has put that in the back of my mind. There got to be something better. There got to be, it's going to be greater later. That one, it's going to be greater later. Oh my God, that for me, and all the trauma that I go through, because I know that God be looking out for me. And I know that God wants the best for me. And I know that he has my best interest at heart. So whatever I go through, it is for a purpose. And so I may not know what that purpose is at that time and that moment where I'm going through the drama and the trauma. I don't know, but I have enough faith to know that it's going to get better. And what is the lesson from that? And who can I help as a result of what I just went through? And how can I bless somebody else? And how can my hardship be the blueprint to help someone else? And that's kind of how I've lived my life. And God has just always just be taking me through some things, not be like, I didn't even know, we going down this road and I'm like, God, I got it, go ahead and ride shotgun. I got this. And I always go down the wrong road. And he was like, get your ass in the passenger seat and let me drive. And when I allow him to drive, it might not be the path that I wanted or felt like I needed, but he always gets me there. We lost Dr. Felice, but it is time to go ahead and get up out of here. Vanessa, let's talk about your final thoughts, because I really want to go back to legacy, because that's what this is all about. Mike Tyson and legacy. And so I want you just to kind of, give your final thoughts on what legacy is, how other people can actually use their legacy to impact others.
I think that leaving a good legacy, as I always preach, is grab your five. You don't have to be you don't have to be some business or some famous person to create a legacy. Get five people and focus on changing their lives. It could be your family, it could be your children, it could be your friends. But I believe that if we all have five people that we were consistently dedicated to creating a positive impact, I think that overall as a community, you will leave a legend. You will leave a great legacy in that you literally change people's lives. Also, let's empower our children with getting them to where they need to be educationally and teaching them how to find good tribes, teaching them how to follow good leaders if they're going to be a follower while they're in the process of learning how to be a leader. Those are my final thoughts on legacy. Grab your five, and really let's get to work with sharing resources, sharing ideas, sharing anything that builds another person up. You can find me at Vigo Paul. That's at VGOPAUL. All my stuff is on there. If you want to travel, if you're in Los Angeles and you have a construction project, please look for my company, Winter Remodeling Inc. It's also on at Vigo Paul. And, thank you for sharing all your comments. There was some pretty personal information that was shared in the chat. It's always great to read those comments and highlight them. Really an amazing group of people in the chat today.
Yay, good stuff. And then since you in LA, we're gonna go mash on them fools. All right, Joe. Ain't that what you said last week? Smash. Joe, what are your final thoughts on legacy?
On legacy, as someone who routinely holds space for other people, I'm going to use my final thoughts to acknowledge Shelly, who is my mother. And and when we're talking about legacy, we're talking about a woman who I have been without longer than I actually got to be with. But so the lessons or the stories that I've heard usually are coming secondhand. The things that I understand because I didn't have the benefit of having an adult conversation with my mother. Everything that I know about her adult life came later in life and not from her. And what I understand about you, Mom, is that you overcame poverty, abuse, and struggle in order to provide a life for your family, which included me. And in providing for me, what you told me constantly over and over again is that I was different and I was special. And yes, I've had struggles in my life and I acknowledge those. And, but I would not have been able to get through those without that belief that I was meant for something greater, and that, making you proud was a priority. So the legacy that you left, and the legacy that I'm passing on is great. And that's that. And this had nothing to do with money or finances or any of those things. You let your son believe in himself, and I'm grateful and I love you for that.
Wow. Where can they find you?
You can find me at realuconsulting.com, and that's where the couch is. Come holler at me.
Lord Jesus, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do it, y'all. My heart. Wow. Thank you for that, Dr. Joe. I appreciate your transparency. I just want everybody to think about themselves. Think about you. Think about your family. Think about what you want your legacy to be. Think about how you want your name to be spoken after you are gone. I want you to really think about that. And is what you're doing today reflective of how you want your name mentioned after you're gone? That's all I want you to do. And if it's not, make a decision to change your life today. And there are steps that you can take. I love what Vanessa said is about surrounding yourself with positive people. You know, if you're around 3 successful people, you're going to be the 4th. If you're around 3 trifling assholes, you're going to be the 4th. If you're around 3, positive people, you're going to be the 4th. Change your circle of influence, change your environment, and then you can therefore change your thought process. Because your future, not only your future, your children's future and your community depends on what you do today and the decisions that you make today. Where can you find me? Everywhere. I am Constance Carter. And listen, let me share something about Mike Tyson. I mean, at the end of the day, his legacy has sparked powerful conversation today. I don't know if it was just a moment, and we're talking about him in a moment that he had when he was sharing how he felt right then and there. But we were able to, it provoked a lot of thought-provoking conversation and commentary today. We were able to really dig deep and share who we are, what legacy meant to us, where we've come from, and how we want our names to show up once we're gone, right? Because the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children, his children's children. But it's not just the money. It's about the integrity. It's about the life. It's about everything. It's about the footprint. For others, it's about living in the present and letting the chips fall where they may. What about you? Okay, so I'm going to ask you today, does legacy matter? Does it? If not, that's okay, because it's your life. So I appreciate you joining us today. And guess what? You can find us everywhere, every day from 10 a.m. Pacific to 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fly Nubian Queen or any other platform that we're on. We're on about 8 to 10 different platforms every single day. So if there's only 3 people where you at, trust me, there might be 1,000 people somewhere else. But we're glad that you're joining us from wherever you are. And you can also listen to us on Spotify. If you can't see us, go to Spotify and search Fly Nubian Money. And remember, text the word Queens, please, or else I might get fired. So I need you to go do this right now. Text word Queens to 87948. I got a warning notice last week from our producer, Miss Black Hollywood, that says, if you don't tell them to text the word Queens to 87948, this might be your last show. So I need y'all to do me a favor and text the word Queens to 87948. And also, if you want to learn how to grow your money and not blow your money, go to flynubianmoney.com. And also, guess what? We like to have guests sometimes. Yeah. If there is a subject that you really feel passionate about and you want to come and join the queens and the king every now and then, go ahead and email info@realvirtual.net. As for now, we appreciate you always joining us, and we appreciate our regulars. And if you just discovered us, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe and follow every channel that you are on. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same bat channel.